Coming to you from the dining room table at East Barbary Lane, welcome to a special episode of Full Circle, the podcast. A weekly visit to our home where we squeeze a few headlines and sometimes the world at large through our decidedly queer lens and see what happens. This episode is a little different, but then again, not really. So Martha and I were invited to attend gallery pre-opening VIP special preview of an exhibit at the Arthur Ross Gallery at the University of Pennsylvania. The exhibition is called The Illuminated Body by artist Barbara Earl Thomas. It's a nationwide traveling exhibition and it's making its third and final stop at the Arthur Ross Gallery. And I got to sit down with Barbara Earl Thomas, as well as the interim director of exhibitions at the Arthur Ross Gallery, Emily Zimmerman. And we had a nice conversation about the art and the Philadelphia art scene. And I think you'll enjoy it. So check it out. Barbara Earl Thomas and Emily Zimmerman are in the house. Good afternoon, you guys.
Hola.
Good afternoon.
So glad to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. So I was actually telling you off mic how this is a departure from what we normally do at Full Circle, but I am so intrigued by this project that I had to sit and talk with you. So Barbara, you are the artist of The Illuminated Body, which is going to be premiering at the Arthur Ross Gallery of the University of Pennsylvania. And Emily, you are the interim director of exhibitions at Arthur Ross. So y'all are some heavy hitters, and welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the first thing I wanted to ask Barbara is just talk to me a little bit about, actually more than a little bit, about the Illuminated Body. What is it? What was your inspiration for the project, and what are we in store for?
Well, when I think about what was my inspiration, I think that first and foremost, when I did it, I was doing these portraits, and that's kind of how it started. Portraits of people who I know, but who I wanted to illuminate and make them sort of bigger than life, because I feel like each one of us, as we move through our day, we're doing all our mundane things, but we're always referencing the heroic. What is it that I'm doing? Myself and you'll see in these portraits that I'm referencing the other thing, the portrait, but also the other thing that the individual is doing. So many people are playing their instrument. There are people playing the cello or the trumpet. And in the case of August Wilson, I reference one of the plays in his cycle, well, two of the plays in his cycle of plays that he's so well known for. And Charles Johnson, who is a writer who is also very well known for his writing. And they were good friends. And I kind of wanted to put them back together. August died much too soon, but I thought, you know what? I can do them. I knew them both. I knew him. So I put them back together so they could tour together and have another conversation as they had in life. But I used this silhouette hand cut kind of method that I developed for myself. And then I wanted to bring color and light. So I used this hand printed paper. And I thought, it's about the light and the dark, and they can look at the work and see it as sort of this bold, illustrative sort of narrative, or they could see it just as pure design. And then from there, I went into what if I could step inside the image and be behind in that light? What would that world look like? I mean, haven't you ever been to a museum or looked at an image and you kind of look past the, the figure or the subject, and wonder what would it be like if I just appeared behind that thing.
Hmm.
And I was in that world. So that led me to the installation. Yes.
That is a rich legacy to draw
Hmm.
upon, I must say. So I know I've seen photos of the portraits, and they're very striking. The contrast of the deep black against the vibrant colors, and it feels like photo negatives almost. Was that, am I any way close?
Well, that's interesting because it's not something I'd necessarily thought about, but I always depend on my viewer to bring the rest. That's the completion of the work for me, is when you step through, you look at it, and then you make a connection visually, sensorially to the work. And I learn about what the conversation is. And I'm fascinated
Hmm.
with, I'm one of those people that will go to people's houses and I'll pick up their scrapbooks and just be fascinated looking through at people I don't even know, because there's a world there and a story.
Right.
And I'm a
Yeah.
storyteller.
Um. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. I'm also excited to experience the transformation
Hmm.
room, um, because of I love immersive art. So like what are the feelings that you hope viewers will come away with once they experience that space?
Well, I think it's like a 12-foot tall kind of wall height, and it's kind of encircled with these all hand cut walls that I've created with
Do you have
people who
headphones here?
work with me. And I want people to feel sort of the energy of the making, and the energy of how much we cared when we were making. And it's the obsession. You don't do this kind of stuff if you're not possessed and obsessed and in making something from a million different small cuts that add up to something hopefully bigger than the sum total of the one cut. So when you step through,
Right.
I want you to be a little dazzled and knocked off, maybe like your what's happened to you in your day, and be someplace with maybe someone that you might not have met before, to have an experience that's shared. And perhaps that will be the thing that links you, that changes you in that moment. And that if you ever saw that person again, you could say, I saw you in this really strange place. And it was like, this is a thing we experienced together. And it's not like I mean, it's not like it changes all the things about you that are different from, but it does give you something. And so that's what I'm trying to think about, how we can add to something, find common ground in beauty that has in it the intention of the human hand.
That's so rich. Have you all were you always creative? Were you a creative child?
Well, I think I was, but I lived in a house where, I said in one interview I said, I lived in a house where everything that was the adornment mostly were things that were made. If we wanted something, my mom would make the curtains. My mom would, she was a crocheter. I made people laugh. I said, if you sat long enough on the couch, my mom would crochet right around you. She was one of those. And so, and then we embroidered. We did, if you wanted something beautiful, you just made it. And you didn't know it was fine art, you just made it. And you made it in a way that um, was always the best you could do. And I tell the story of embroidering, and my mother would walk over and she'd flip it over and look at the back. And she said, "You remember, sew, cut, tuck, so that the back was as beautiful as the front. Because it's
Mm.
not just that, you have this beautiful thing on the front. It's when you take off the dress, you take off the thing, you look at the back, you see that there's also been care for what's on the other side. What's on the other
You
side.
said, but I was thinking that element of care, especially in talking about a garment, for instance, where it's not just, something that you put on to cover your body, but there's also the care for the aesthetic, the what you're looking at, the appreciation of the visual of it. I love it. So your work in Illuminated Body covers some heavy topics. It addresses systemic racism, gun violence, climate change, the biggies. Have Is this your first work that covers such deep subject matter, or is this like, you know, typical of what you do?
Well, I think that, just to go back and just sort of do a little corrective on that, this work is actually portraits with people and their added dimension, their instrument. But in the arc of my career, that is what I've done. And in the arc of
Okay.
I think what I do is I enter the world and I look around, and it's the things that I see and the small stories underneath the big headline that interests me, and how we live it daily, and how each of those small things enters into our day and changes us,
Mm.
changes how we move through our day, changes, how we interact with other people. And yeah, if it's about, I don't think I've ever said this is about racism, but I will say my relationship with you can be changed by how you treat me, because you have made an assumption before you have actually made the connection. And that is
Okay.
what I think happens so often, as we come in. And that's the thing about the transformation room. I want you to walk in and you have a chance to change someone and touch someone if you can get them off guard just a little bit, so that you can make the connection before they've solidified their story about the experience they think they're going to have. You know,
Mm.
they think they're going to have. I'm not interested in coming predefined, because to me, that's just a little bit of death. If somebody thinks they can sum you up in one sentence, they can dismiss you. Oh, Barbara
Mm.
Thomas Black, blah, 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 blah. That's her. And
Right.
they
Right.
never have
Right.
to think about it again. And that is why people are always striving to. They want to get it done and move on. Well, as long as I'm on the planet, you don't get to do that. You
Right.
don't get to do that. I don't get to do that with you. You've got some headphones on, and I see your face. I make certain kinds of decisions about who you are and where you come from. But I stop myself before I close the door on the definition of you. I look at Emily, and I've known her for some years, and I have, allowed myself to be open and to hopefully make some mistakes we can come back from, and live in the forgiveness of that, and assume that if someone says something to you that isn't quite right, that they didn't necessarily mean it. I can tell the difference between somebody meaning some to hurt my feelings and somebody actually hurting my feelings, and having
Right.
said some. I've done it myself. I am not
Hmm.
immune.
I do that thing where I'll be awakened at 4 a.m. by something that I said 7 years ago that came across differently than how I meant it. And then I sit there and cringe for another 45 minutes before I rock myself back to sleep. I understand. So Emily, you have seen a lot of art in your time.
Yes, yeah, I've been doing this for 20 years, more than 20 years now. And I'm so grateful to be able to work with artists like Barbara as my day-to-day life. It's the greatest gift on the planet.
So, I hate to use the word gatekeeper because that has such uh, darker connotations these days. But you hold the keys as with the Arthur Ross Gallery. So, with the first of all, what would you say is the mission of the gallery, and what was it about Barbara's work that made you go, yes, here now?
Yeah. So the Arthur Ross Gallery has a mission to educate, engage, and inspire. And those three words immediately in my mind come together in Barbara's work. As the Gallery of the University of Pennsylvania, our first job is to educate students and bring them into contact with artists, to educate them about the intentions behind artists' work, and to collaborate with faculty and staff across the campus to bring out dimensions of that work in a way that really explores the fullness of an exhibition in the kind of irreducible ways that Barbara's talking about. Um, so for this exhibition, we've got a really robust series of programs that include Seth Parker Woods coming to perform on April 11th, and Marisa Williamson, who's an artist from Philadelphia, coming to give a lecture performance. As well as wellness programming and a community celebration of creativity on May 11th. Um, in terms of why Barbara's work beyond our mission statement, I grew up loving the building that the Arthur Ross Gallery is housed in, the Fisher Fine Arts building that was created by architect Frank Furness. And that building deals with the themes, archetypes of light and dark, of windows, and integrating words and poetry into its very fabric. And on my second day on the job, I was asked, what exhibition do you want to do? And Barbara Earl Thomas was the answer, because the resonance between this place and her work is so profound. And we just uncrated the work and installed it, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah, I was saying I saw the images, and it really transforms her work, really transforms the space and
It
makes it
does.
a different world that I can't wait to actually be inside of. You mentioned Seth Parker Woods, and whose performance is going to be part of this exhibition in April. Is that
April 11th at Penn Live Arts Zeller Bach
Yes,
Theater.
I love it. I love it. Barbara, what is your relationship to Seth? Because I know you also the one cover image I believe is a portrait you did that ended up being his album cover. Is that
It
correct?
did. And it's all been so serendipitous. I met Seth here in Seattle when he was part of, he was doing a residency, and he was in I think, an ensemble with musician Derek Burmel, who's from Brooklyn. And Derek had asked me to come in and do some kind of collaboration with him. And I said, well, I'm not sure what to do, but I will do something. So I came in and I made these images that were projected all around the room that they were playing in. And I saw this young man across the room. I actually thought I knew him. I just walked over and I said, oh my God, you're so cute. And he kind of looked at me like, I'm from Chicago. And like, do you know me? And then I realized I didn't. But then I introduced myself, and he was playing the cello, and I was taken with him and taken with just his, the physical attitude and the cello, which is a body. And I thought, what? I think at some point I'm going to do something with him. Well, it turns out he was doing a project on Jacob Lawrence, and we interacted about getting some permissions for Jacob's work that he was going to use as a projection in one of his performances. And as it was going along, I was looking at him. I said, well, I asked him, I said, would you mind if I uh, used one of the images that you did in my work? And he said, "Oh no." So I've done him twice. Once for my show at the Henry Gallery, Packaged Black, that I did with Derek Adams. He and I did together, and then for my lead image for the show, I did that. You know, that has become part of the Arthur Ross. And I think through it, then he called me. He said, "Well, I'm doing this this compilation of my compositions. Can I use the images that you did of me?" I said, "Sure." So here I had already these images that I'd done of him, and he had this great graphic designer, and they took them and made something that was totally beautiful. So it was like having the work be transformed and then now house his compositions. And, there's this young man, he was, nominated for a Grammy and talented as anything. And I've only been in the same room with him once.
Wow.
So it's all been kind of through the ether and having a relationship around the work that we make and around I don't know, there was just a generosity there. He allowed me and I allowed him. I mean, no money was changed. It's just like it was an exchange that I didn't know he was going to be nominated. I didn't know. I just wanted to be part of the visual part of his ensemble. And then I asked him if I could use two of the cuts from his collection as the sound in my transformation room. And I'd always wanted to have sound, but had never kind of quite had enough time to incorporate that. So with this show, I will be the first time I've incorporated some sound, and it's Seth's cello playing and his composition. And so it's been a lovely waltz in the ether.
Come on, multimedia collaboration. I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the way the universe works. I always say we're always exactly where we need to be when we need to be there, because if that weren't true, we'd be somewhere else. It's as simple as that. We're always where we need to be. It's like the universe puts these pieces together. I love that. I love that so much. So I want to ask you both a couple of more broad questions, just because I have you here. So, for Emily, I want to ask, what is your opinion on the Philly art scene uh, as it stands now? Because it's ever shifting, and Lord knows Philly is one of the most art friendly, artsy towns, artsy cities that there are. Um, and there's so many different genres and components to that. What's your impression? How do you see it?
Yeah, so introducing Barbara's work to Philadelphia is a great gift because so many of the themes in the exhibition resonate with things that this town already
Mm,
understands, i.e., like how to create a tightly knit, interwoven, creative fabric where communities don't just, go to the museums and the galleries, and a different community goes to music events, but everyone kind of goes to everything. And there's a real sense of a broad definition of what it means to be involved in the arts, and for multimedia collaborations across genres. People that have a lot of the artists have a fluid sense of identification in terms of like, I work in visual arts, but I also DJ on the side and things like that. So that is one of the things I have really cherished about the Philadelphia art scene since I grew up in Philadelphia, and have loved this town for its commitment to the arts, not only from like the greatest museums on the planet down to DIY spaces, and its unfailing, ever vibrant commitment to keep the arts going.
Yes, that is one thing I love about Philadelphia in particular. There are artists everywhere, and
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a house party or a protest. There will always be an artist on the side doing something to contribute to the mood of the moment.
I love the mood of the moment.
I was kind of proud of that myself, actually. So, Barbara, now in 2024, even though it's only, a couple months in, not even, um, I feel like art is so important. How important would you say the role of an artist, of creativity, is at this time? Um, because I'm gonna let you go.
Well, I think, let me just say this. What the creative process demonstrates and models for the whole culture is the idea of embracing the unknown,
Mm,
embracing the fear and the anxiety and the anticipation, and not trying to make it be something that you can predict, but grappling with what is, and
mm,
but knowing that you have agency. You don't step in, you're not Justine, and life is happening to you, but you are actually, okay, I come in, I see the blank page, and that is a scary moment. And
mm,
then you start to do something, and all of a sudden, the minute you put down a mark, you've made a decision about not just everything that's going to happen, but some of the things that aren't going to happen. So you are grappling. And also, I believe that it's really important to, if you get it in the creative process, is about, you start with an idea, but then when you get into the work, you realize the work is starting to go like, maybe that first idea I had, that got me in, that's the ticket. But once you get to it, then you see where you are. And if you're smart, you'll go with what the idea is revealing to you, so that you don't get stuck on sort of some didactic, some slogan, but you go like, this is where I need to go because this is what the work is telling me needs to happen. And then you decide also, what is the outcome you're looking for? you
mm,
know and it may be that you have to submerge the you to the greater good of the purpose of the piece, and then
mm.
listen to what the piece, and then foremost, be honest, be willing to, like, you get someplace and you go like, that I made a mistake, that is not really, I thought that's what I was thinking, but now that I look at the work has informed me, and I need to make a slight shift or a big shift and then move on. And I think that's what the culture needs to be able to stay pliant and fluid and not get caught up in the death of its own words.
Mm.
And so that's where that's what I think the creative process can keep alive in a culture. I mean, as I always tell anybody, anything I do, I don't think my work is going to feed, clothe, stop someone from having violence heaped upon their person, but it can keep the place of embracing mystery and also being open to adjustment. And when I fail in my work, I mean, I'm always pushing, then I forgive myself. you know
Mm.
so if you can forgive yourself, then maybe you can forgive somebody else. I don't know.
I feel that because honesty and authenticity in art is essential, because when it's not there, for one thing, it's evident. It's immediately evident, I
There you
think.
go.
And the artist is simultaneously observer, participant, and critic or commentator. And if you're going to be, if you are actually an artist, you are by default fulfilling those roles. And therefore, if you're not being honest and authentic, you're doing a disservice to the role of being an artist.
Well, I'll tell you something that Jacob Lawrence told me when he came and he was doing a critique of my work. I'd done this. I didn't know I had some design, and in my time, things were like you kind of let it happen. I was never a let it happen person. I'm too Scorpio for that. But but I was drawing something, and he looked at the design figure, and it was something like a fleur de lis, and he said, "Barbara, if you're going to use something like that, that's really a design specific kind of shape, you need to know before you can abstract it. You need to know exactly what the composition of that shape is. So then, if you want to come in and do something that's referential, that's going to work." He says, "But if you don't do it, if you don't know it, and you don't reference some skill that you actually have, when people see it, everybody will know. Everybody will know." And I took that not just for my work, but for how I show up in the world. And if I come, trying to smudge something over because I haven't quite figured out how to draw that thing, people will know. And so I think that that's a lesson I've taken forward. That's both good for the art and good for the soul.
Beautiful. So Emily, let the people know, where can we come experience Barbara's amazing work, and when?
Yeah, you can, starting February 16th at 5:30 p.m. at the Arthur Ross Gallery on the campus of the University of Pennsylvania in the Fisher Fine Arts Building, located at 220 South 34th Street, Philly, PA 19104. From that point forward till May 21st, you can see Barbara's work, and you can find out about all of the exciting programs that are happening at arthurrossgallery.org.
And the
Thank you
evening of
for
the opening, I will be speaking with Kimi Adeyemi, who is an amazing intellectual, an amazing writer. She's a tenured professor here at at the University of Washington, and another young person whose words I so revere. Thank you.
I love it. And thank you, Emily, for throwing in the website, because I was going to ask about that.
Great.
And
Yeah.
Barbara, if we wanted to keep track of you and your work and your comings and goings, where could we go and visit?
Well, I have my website and my Instagram, which is, I guess, the way people do it these days, and it's just my name, Barbara Earl Thomas, and I have the Earl in there because it's my dad's middle name and a family name, so it distinguishes me from all the other Barbara Thomases that there are on the planet, and there are many.
That's right. I love it. Well, Martha and I are going to be there with bells on the 16th, so we can meet you all and experience the work. And we are very excited, and I can't wait. So Barbara Earl Thomas and Emily Zimmerman, thank you so much for joining us at Full Circle, the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Full Circle is a Never Scared Productions podcast, hosted by Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal, produced and edited by Never Scared, executive produced by Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal. Our theme and music is by the Jingleberries. All names, pictures, music, audio, and video clips are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective copyright holders.